how did India gain its independence? What was that tipping point by which India gained his independence? Any takers here? Absolutely right. It started with that Mangal Pandey piece and other pieces. Another biggest piece was when you had Mahatma Gandhi Mohan Karamchand Gandhi getting thrown out of the train. I think one of the biggest moments which is there is that moment, which had nothing to do with India's independence, which had to do with a lawyer, who's there, wants to be like the Englishman in South Africa, getting thrown out, feeling very bad about it, his ego hurt, and that led to things. So it was actually a very small thing which happened. It had a very big impact. It was one dramatic moment and it was contagious later on. I want to narrate then why this book is very close to me is one example. I was 130 kgs at the age of 16. I had meningitis at the age of 13. After that, every year I used to gain 35 kgs. I had a waist size of 49. Blissfully okay. Class 11. I was in class 10. Blissfully fine. No problem. There was a person in my father's factory, and when you weigh soap, it was a soap factory, there is actually a huge container where you put the soap up. I stood on it. He said, "You already crossed," and his words were, "आप एक क्विंटल के ऊपर निकल चुके हो काफी." Good progress. Nothing. He laughed. 5 people laughed. I came back home, and that day I decided, I have to do something about myself. I really didn't know what I needed to do, but that night, at the age of 16, I didn't sleep. Next 1.5 years, I didn't have one single roti. I went down to 77 in 1 year. Again, I gained a little, but that one dramatic moment has been throughout my life. So, what it changed, I don't think so I would be here in my career or anywhere else if that 1 quintal didn't happen. So, that's why this book has a big impact on me. So, what he talks about is, in a short time, you have dramatic things happening which have a long-term impact. How much time coronavirus has been in vogue? December 29th, and we are 32 days from there, and we're talking about spreading across the world, cutting out a city, shutting down China. We're talking about all that. This is the spread. You had SARS similarly at the early part of decade. So this is how the virus also spreads. So he talks about it. It's a social epidemic, and he talks about there are 3 things there in a virus. You have an agent. What was the agent in this case? The Wuhan seafood market, where you have very different species which they sell, which transmit, and it was SARS was transmitted from bats to humans. Similarly, you are expecting another, mammal has transmitted into human, and that's how the career is. So you have an agent, you have a career, and you have a market, which is the marketplace in China, which has always been the environment which created it. So if you apply it to a social epidemic, it works. And we'll talk about where all it applied to. So his 3 main things are that whenever you are spreading a social message or you're spreading a marketing message, there primarily are 3 things. You have an agent, you have a carrier, and you have an appropriate environment. Yawn is contagious. Do we know that? Whether it's humans or mammals or animals, it's contagious. So the 3 rule of being contagious, it's few. One person can create yawn in a multiple people. The law of the few, the stickiness factor, and then you have the power of context. So these are the 3 factors which cause contagious behavior. So the law of the few. The law of the few, I'll quickly talk about it. What they talk about is only few people cater to it, and the first example is your hush puppies again. Hush puppies were there for a very long time in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and then vanished. But now hush puppies are still there. You have Bata, and hush puppy showrooms have come in themselves. So what happened was, in a remote village, 2 Hollywood type, as they call it, teenagers and designers went. They saw these hush puppies. They were very well connected, and they called up the designer in New York, and he said, "Hey, let's launch hush puppies again." And that was the tipping point. Hush puppies came back into existence. First law of being a few is your connector. Second, is a maven. Maven is a person who knows the market. Somebody like Jeff Bezos, Jack Ma, they knew more than anybody else. And the third piece is you have a salesperson who can sell it well. So the people I name, they can be a maven and they can be a good person. So these are the three steps of the few. So stickiness, a message which creates a stickiness. Washing powder, Nirma? Do we all, whichever age group you know that? Okay. So that is one message which creates a stickiness. He speaks about an example of Winston in the 1950s. That's the brand which created an impact. And third is the power of context. Where do you apply? It uses this, I won't go into the detail. It speaks about 1980s, the kind of crime which used to happen in New York. And there were big crimes happening all across, and they figured out if they can actually stop people from drawing graffitis, catch people for small crimes, the big heinous crimes go down. They started that, and suddenly New York, if you remember, as a kid I remembered, don't go into certain areas in New York because they are pretty out of your bounds. The suburbs, that went out of the board. So they applied that principle that you can look at the context and see it's only the small tipping points which make a difference and not the bigger one. The last point I had for the audience is that most of us work in a job. Look at it how it applies to all of us. Whether it's the law of the few, who are the agents which matter? Who are the careers we can cater to? What is the environment we want to function in? And what is our power of context and how do we create stickiness in whichever part? So that's what I want to leave you with. Thank you so much.